Hello and welcome to the Black Cat Bushcraft channel. Today I wanted to share with you my method for making a quick and decorative lanyard for your bushcraft knife. A lot of people may not like having a lanyard attached to their bushcraft knife, and I understand that, as it's an extra piece of cordage that could snag on brush or other things and potentially pull the knife from the sheath. However, the method that I like to use to make a lanyard will help to minimize that risk. The main reason that I like to have a lanyard on my bushcraft style knives is that many times these knives ride in very deep-seated sheaths. In other words, there's a small amount of the knife handle exposed when the knife is on my hip in its sheath. And sometimes, especially in cold weather, your fingers might lose a little dexterity, or if you're wearing gloves, it can be very difficult to reach back and get a hold of that small area of the knife exposed. If you have that lanyard, it gives you just a little extra real estate to grab hold of and safely and securely remove your knife from the sheath. If you'll stick with me, I'll show you how I like to tie my knife lanyards. Alright, to get started, all you're going to need is the cordage that you want to tie your lanyard from. In this case, I'm using a safety orange paracord, which personally I tend to go with more earth tone or even natural materials like leather for my lanyards, but I thought that this safety orange paracord would be easy to see for the demonstration. And I can see an application for that. If you ever put your knife down, this would make it easy to spot your knife in a wilderness environment. I also like to put beads on my lanyards, and this is just a simple wooden bead that I picked up at a craft store. And the nice thing about the bead is A, it's decorative, and B, it helps to keep your lanyard drawn together and prevents that loop from opening up. And I'll show you what I mean by that better once I get the lanyard tied. The knife that I'm going to be putting this lanyard on is just an old Blind Horse Ranger, and it doesn't currently have a lanyard on it, so we'll use that for the example. First thing is to run your paracord through the lanyard loop on your knife. I now take my bead at that point and put both ends of the paracord through the bead. And this bead happens to have a nice wide opening, which makes it easy, but some beads you might have to work on that a little bit to get both ends of the cordage through. So that's what we have so far. Alright, now that I've got my paracord run through my lanyard loop and through my bead, we'll tie the knot. And I want this lanyard to be fairly short, so what I'm going to do is take one end of this paracord and go underneath the other side. We'll call that our working end that I'm wrapping with. And I'm just going to wrap a loop. And I'm going to continue that process multiple times here. And you can do as few or as many as you like, but just in the sake of making it a little more decorative, I like to do normally around 6 to 7 times, or just whatever looks good to me at that moment. Now when I'm wrapping these loops, I try to wrap them loose, because at this point what I have to do is take this tag in and go back underneath each one of those loops. Right, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go back underneath each one of these loops that I made with that working end. And that's probably the hardest part of this process. Just got to kind of work it back underneath. That one I pulled a little too tight to start with. There we go. That's it. Now at that point, all I'm going to do is cinch this down, tightening up the knot. So you can see, once I cinch it down, it just tightens up, and it looks nice. Sort of a decorative knot there. Alright, I'm going to do this once more, and this time with the khaki paracord, and that's the one that I'm going to actually leave on the knife. As functional as the safety orange is, my personal taste is just to use more earth tone stuff. So you can see I just started by crossing underneath, and I'm wrapping loops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one more 6. That works for me. Now I just take that working end and I'm going to work it back underneath each one of these loops straight through. It's okay if your knot gets a little messy while you're doing this, because you can always cinch it back. And that's it. Cinch that knot down. And I always start a little closer than I actually want the knot, because it does slip to tighten up. So it'll slide away from the bead a little bit to tighten that knot up. Alright, so after burning the ends, this is what the final result looks like. Makes it really nice to grip the knife, pull it up out of the sheath. Like I said, even with a gloved hand or when your hands are cold and you don't have as much fine dexterity with your fingers, this gives you an easy way to grab hold of that and get that knife out of that sheath safely. And like I said, I just like the way it looks, decorative. I mentioned that I do a lot of them in leather. Here's one that I did recently with leather. You can see I have a contrasting bead on that. To me, it just looks nice. Whenever I trim the ends of the leather, I always kind of trim it at a point like that. Just kind of looks nice. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to tune in for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope that if you haven't subscribed to the Black Cat Bushcraft channel, that you'll click subscribe and you'll join me again for the next video. I look forward to talking to you with that video as soon as possible. And until that time, take care and God bless.